Chosen one, heaven took notice of you today. The very moment your eyes opened this morning, a tremor ran through the unseen realm. You may think it was just another day beginning, but in heaven's record, it was the moment your loyalty spoke louder than your weariness. You didn't rise out of habit, you rose out of conviction. You proved to God that your commitment isn't built on convenience, but on covenant. Beloved, understand this when you rose. Heaven's gates opened wider. Light poured where darkness once claimed victory. Your breath this morning carried the sound of promise, shaking walls that confined you. Every heartbeat declared, I am still chosen. Heaven recorded your rising as a song of unbroken faith. You see, there are many who wake up and surrender before the day even starts. They scroll through shadows, searching for meaning. But you chose the light. When pain tried to press you down, you whispered, still, I believe. When doubt crept in, you whispered, still, I will obey. Heaven heard those whispers. Angels paused their movements to listen. For few sounds are more beautiful to heaven than the voice of a faithful one rising from battle. You didn't know that the moment your feet touched the ground, a declaration went forth. This one still stands. The kingdom of darkness flinched. The adversary sighed. For the plans formed against you through the night failed again. That's what your rising meant today, not routine, but resistance, not coincidence. But covenant renewal. You think God didn't see the heaviness in your chest. He did. You think he missed the tears that nearly fell before sunrise. He didn't. Every ache you carried into the morning became incense before his throne. Every sigh became a song of endurance that only heaven could interpret. You didn't complain, and that silence became worship. You didn't quit, and that persistence became prophecy. Chosen one. You have to understand, commitment is not proven in comfort. It's proven in those mornings when you're running on empty and still choose to lift your head. That's what separates the called from the chosen. Anyone can love God in sunlight. Only the chosen love him in stormlight. That's what you did, and heaven has recorded it. You are not overlooked. God saw you resist the urge to give up, to go back, to shut down, and because of that, favor is being written into your timeline. There's a weight of glory forming around you that your eyes can't yet see. Heaven doesn't applaud the loudest voice. It crowns the most consistent heart. And that's what you prove today, that your heart is steady, your spirit anchored, your devotion unmoved. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 17, verse 7. But blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. Yes, beloved, that's you. You are that one. The blessing Jeremiah saw centuries ago was waiting for people like you, the ones who trust when there's no proof, who walk when the path is fog, who love when the cost is high. Heaven's blessing now rests upon your steps because your confidence remains in the Lord, not in circumstance. And now, I want you to pause. Don't rush past this moment. Heaven orchestrated it, so you'd hear this right now, not before, not after. This is divine timing. God wanted you to know that your quiet yes this morning was heard in heaven. Every act of obedience matters. Every moment you choose righteousness, when no one's watching, sends ripples into eternity. If this message found your heart beating faster, It's because your spirit recognizes the voice of truth. So here's what I want you to do. Type 770 inches. The comments. A prophetic declaration that says, I am fully committed. Do it not for the algorithm, but as an act of agreement with heaven. When you write it, you are marking this moment in the spirit realm as the day heaven confirmed your faithfulness. Then, like this message, not for vanity, but to spread light into timelines where hope is fading, share it. Because someone else needs to be reminded that endurance is noticed. And subscribe, so that you stay connected with the flow of divine encouragement prepared for this season of your walk. Remember this, chosen one, you didn't just wake up today, you rose into evidence. Heaven saw you when the world didn't. God smiled while the darkness sighed. And from this moment on, you walk under a banner that reads, faithful even in fatigue. Keep walking, keep trusting, and keep proving, because heaven is still watching. And you are still chosen. The test behind your morning battle was never random. Chosen one. What you faced before sunrise wasn't just exhaustion or delay, it was a divine measurement of your endurance. Heaven doesn't test to harm, heaven tests to reveal. The pressure that tried to crush you was the very fire that refined you. And though your body felt weak, your spirit was radiant. That battle before morning was a divine conversation in motion. Every moment you resisted the urge to collapse. You were testifying. Every tear that fell was evidence. Every breath that carried your prayer was a declaration in heaven's language. I still choose you, Lord. On. You see, the test was never about what you could lose. It was about what you could carry. Heaven needed to know that you would keep walking, even when there was no map. That your faith would still move, even when your feelings stopped cooperating. And you did. You kept moving. That is why today you walk under the quiet radiance of approval. Heaven saw you choose faith over feeling. The resistance was loud, but your silence was louder. Every time you refused to answer fear with panic, you declared authority. Every time you swallowed the complaint and whispered, God, I trust you. You disarmed the plans of darkness. What you called a hard morning was actually a holy proving ground. Chosen one. God measures growth differently than the world. People look for trophies and platforms. But heaven looks for endurance and obedience. Before elevation comes testing. Before authority comes pressure. Before reward comes refinement. The oil that flows through you now was pressed out of your pain. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 17. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. That's what's happening to you. What you thought was breaking you was actually building weight, not the weight of worry, but the weight of glory. You've been trusted with trials that carry eternal consequence, and because you didn't fold, that weight is being transferred into wisdom, power, and spiritual authority. Every battle has a design. This one was meant to refine your focus. You've been asking God to increase your anointing, but increase never comes in comfort. It comes in crushing. The oil of destiny doesn't flow from ease, it flows from endurance. And you, chosen one, are learning to carry it well. What felt like silence from heaven was not rejection, it was observation. God was standing beside you, watching your reactions, seeing if you'd still worship when the feeling was gone. He saw you stay kind when others turned bitter. He saw you keep your integrity when compromise would have been easier. Those moments are sacred. Heaven counts them like treasure. And now, something has shifted. You've proven to heaven that your devotion doesn't depend on results. You don't just love God when doors open, you love Him when they remain closed. You don't just praise when you win, you praise when you're wounded. That's the kind of faith that moves heaven. That's the kind of endurance that hell fears. Your morning battle wasn't punishment, it was promotion disguised as pressure. Heaven knew that what was tested would be trusted. The very moment you said, "Not my will, but yours be done," you unlocked a new level of divine trust. You became a vessel fit for heavier assignments. Because only refined vessels can carry refined oil. And though you didn't hear applause, all of heaven took note. Angels marked the moment. The Father leaned forward, whispering, "They still believe." And in that whisper, realms shifted. Your persistence sent ripples through dimensions you cannot yet comprehend. Now, as you walk through this day, know that what felt like breaking was actually birthing. The pressure on your shoulders is proof that heaven is stretching your capacity. You are not being punished, you are being prepared. You're learning how to stand firm in storms so that when the calm comes, you can guide others through theirs. Hold this truth close. The test was not designed to expose your weakness, but to reveal your unwavering heart. Heaven needed to show you what you're made of. You have more resilience than you imagined, more grace than you thought possible, and more strength than yesterday proved. So when tomorrow brings its next wave, don't panic. Remember this day. Remember that the battle before dawn was a signal of heaven's trust. Remember that pressure is proof of purpose. And remember that what feels like silence from God is often the sound of Him writing your next chapter. You are not losing. You are learning. You are not being forgotten. You are being fortified. And soon, what was once a battlefield will become a testimony, ground proof that you endured what others could not. Because heaven chose you for what others could not carry. You passed what broke others. Chosen one. The very storms that destroyed many became the soil of your endurance. Others quit halfway, but you didn't. Others turned bitter, but you kept believing. You stood where the ground trembled, and heaven saw it. There are battles that exist to expose what's fake, but yours revealed what's real. You've been through moments where betrayal sliced deep, where prayers seemed unanswered, where loneliness echoed louder than laughter, yet still, you stood. That's what separates you from the rest. You carry something the enemy can't imitate. Perseverance born from pain. You didn't survive because it was easy. You survived because grace wrapped itself around your will. Every tear that fell was counted. Every night you whispered, "God, I trust you anyway," was recorded in heaven's archive of faith. What others called weakness was actually your weapon. Because the secret the enemy never understands is this: when a chosen one suffers and still worships, they become unstoppable. There were moments you thought you were finished. Weren't there? Times when your body moved but your heart felt hollow. Yet even then, there was a small flicker, a divine ember that refused to die. That ember was heaven's fingerprint. God's breath kept it alive. Because your collapse would have satisfied darkness, but your persistence brought heaven joy. Listen closely. That's why your trials were so heavy. You weren't being punished, you were being proven. You had to go through what you did, so that God could reveal himself through you. Not just to you. Others needed to see endurance in human form. They needed to see faith wrapped in flesh, still standing after everything. That's why you're here. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus. Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. And that's the secret that carried you. You didn't fight alone. While you were crying, heaven was warring. While you were waiting, angels were working. While you were still, God was moving. Every unseen deliverance, every hidden protection, every last-minute miracle was orchestrated because you kept still long enough for heaven to act. Now, the fruit of that faith is beginning to ripen. You may not see it yet, but your endurance has altered timelines. There are blessings forming with your name engraved, waiting for the divine moment of unveiling. You are walking into a harvest sown by tears, watered by prayer, and matured by patience. Chosen one, you carry a testimony now. It's not the story of a perfect person, but of a persistent one. You are living proof that what's meant to destroy you can't when you belong to God. And though your scars remain, they no longer hurt, they shine. They are reminders of every place God proved himself faithful. Your strength confuses people who don't know your secret. They see your calm, but not your battles. Your smile, but not your scars. Let them wonder. You don't owe anyone an explanation for the peace that cost you sleepless nights. That peace is sacred. Guard it. Protect it. It's proof that God has been with you in the furnace, not just outside it. And as you move forward, never forget, what you conquered will now serve you. The same storms that once terrified you will now obey you. The same pain that tried to silence you will become your platform of purpose. You are stepping into a new realm of authority, not because life got easier, but because you refused to bow when it got harder. The world needs to hear what you've lived. Your endurance is a sermon in motion. Every step you take declares, God is still faithful. Every breath you exhale testifies, I'm still standing. That's power. That's anointing. That's divine evidence. And now, pause with me here. If this word touches that deep, quiet part of your soul, the part that remembers the battles no one else saw, I want you to do something prophetic. Comment, I rise again. Do it not for show, but as a sacred declaration. Those 3 words are not empty. They are spiritual warfare. When you type them, you echo what heaven already proclaimed over you, resurrection power. You remind the darkness that though you were buried in sorrow, you rose in strength. I rise again is your anthem, your battle cry, your proof that nothing can keep the chosen down. So stand taller today. Walk lighter. You are no longer the same person who entered the storm. You came out carrying revelation. You came out glowing with the residue of divine fire. The worst has already happened, and you survived. The enemy's best shot couldn't stop you, which means his power over you is broken. You passed what broke others. You rose from what destroyed many. You carry evidence that endurance is greater than opposition. And now heaven whispers, keep walking. Beloved, the crown fits you now. In the quiet places where no one sees, angels have been watching you. Chosen one, they have seen your persistence in the dark and your quiet surrender when no one clapped for your faith. Heaven operates differently from the world. Applause there is silent but sacred. Every time you said yes when you wanted to quit, the unseen realm erupted with reverence. You may not have heard it, but the sound of your obedience echoed through eternity. The hidden applause of angels isn't like the cheering of men. It's weightier, deeper, eternal. They don't clap for performance, they honor endurance. And you, child of light, have given heaven reason to stand in awe. When others doubted, you believed. When fear tried to cage you, you chose faith. You turned pain into worship and silence into strength. You carried on when no one thanked you. And that's what moved heaven most. Angels do not marvel at wealth, position, or power. They marvel at faith raw, trembling faith that refuses to let go of God's hand. That's what they saw in you. The unseen hosts gathered this morning not to test you, but to witness a moment they call evidence of loyalty. They whispered your name as you rose again. Not because you shouted a prayer, but because your spirit glowed with surrender. You have become a signpost in the spirit, a reminder that even in a weary world, faith can still stand tall. You are what heaven points to when another believer says, "I don't think I can make it." Your endurance becomes their permission to keep going. Your obedience creates ripples of courage in hearts you'll never meet. That's why your story matters more than you realize. Chosen one. When the angels look upon you, they see divine craftsmanship. They see the fingerprints of the Creator woven into your scars. Every wound that once bled now gleams like glass refined by fire. The enemy hoped your pain would silence you, but it only made your faith sing louder. The ancient words recorded in Romans still echo today. Romans, chapter 8, verse 18. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Oh, that's why heaven celebrates you, because even in your present suffering, a greater glory is being sculpted within you, something eternal, something luminous. The weight you carried was not wasted. It was sacred preparation. God was building capacity inside of you, expanding your heart to hold what He's about to pour out. Sometimes you wonder if God truly sees how hard it's been. But heaven doesn't just see, it participates. When you cried, angels collected your tears. When you whispered prayers through shaking hands, they carried your words before the throne. The Father's gaze never left you for a second. He was watching every step, not from a distance, but with delight. There are moments when heaven goes silent, not because God has abandoned you, but because angels are watching in awe. You see, they've never known what it feels like to have faith while bleeding, to worship while wounded. That privilege belongs to humanity. You, chosen one, are teaching heaven what steadfast love looks like under pressure. Your perseverance is revelation in motion. When you keep trusting, heaven learns the rhythm of grace pulsing through a human soul. That's why angels surround you now, not to rescue, but to witness divine endurance clothed in flesh. You are a living sermon they study, a reflection of divine mystery they cannot comprehend but deeply revere. And in the stillness, as your spirit rises again and again, heaven whispers, "This one understands love," because real love is not proven by emotion but by endurance. Real faith is not measured by blessings but by belief in the midst of drought. And that's what you embody. There's a quiet radiance around you now. You may not feel it, but the heavens do. The same angels who watched your breaking now guard your becoming. They have seen what pain produced in you, purity, wisdom, compassion. You are not who you were before the storm. There is depth in your eyes now, strength in your silence, fire in your patience. When you walk, heaven follows. When you speak, atmospheres shift. That is what the applause of angels means, not noise, but acknowledgement. They recognize authority when they see it. And you carry it now. You've proven that obedience still exists in a world drowning in compromise. You've shown that love can outlast loss, that faith can outshine fear. So walk today with quiet assurance. You don't need validation from men when heaven already stood to honor you. The invisible witnesses know your worth. The kingdom of darkness trembles because you no longer need proof. You've already seen God's hand in your survival. Heaven applauds not because you're perfect, but because you're faithful. And that's what God cherishes most. Heaven marks the faithful, chosen one. There are scrolls in the unseen records that do not fade, written not with ink, but with light. And upon those scrolls, your name shines. Every act of endurance, every uncelebrated prayer, every time you loved when you could have turned cold, all of it has been written there. You are marked, not by status or success, but by steadfastness. Faithfulness may look ordinary on earth, but in heaven it glows. While people notice crowns, heaven notices consistency. When you stayed, when it was easier to walk away, heaven recorded it. When you forgave without apology, heaven sealed that moment as sacred. You think you've been unseen, but you've actually been documented by eternity itself. You must understand something: God doesn't reward public performance. He honors private obedience. The reward of the faithful is not in applause, but in alignment. You have been walking in alignment longer than you realize. That's why your path feels narrow. Why certain things you once tolerated now trouble your spirit. You are walking too close to God to carry what others do. Heaven trims the chosen. It prunes those who bear fruit, not those who pretend to. Faithfulness has its fragrance. It's the scent of oil that lingers long after tears dry. It's what makes your presence calm storms. People sense peace around you without knowing why. It's because you've stayed when others fled, trusted when others feared, and prayed when others cursed. Heaven has marked you for promotion. But promotion doesn't always look like elevation. Sometimes it looks like endurance. Sometimes it's not a stage, but a secret place. God is building a foundation beneath your unseen obedience, preparing you to carry more glory without breaking. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms. Psalms, chapter 37, verse 28. For the Lord loves the just and will not forsake his faithful ones. They will be protected forever. That's you, beloved. The protection around you isn't accidental, it's covenantal. The Lord himself has built walls of light around your journey. You've wondered why certain opportunities closed, why certain people left, why some doors that looked good stayed shut. It was protection, not punishment. You are not being kept out, you are being kept safe. The faithful often walk roads that seem lonely, but they are never alone. When you walk in silence, angels walk beside you. When you sigh, heaven sighs with you. When you rest your head in weary surrender, the Father whispers over you. Stilmina, Lon, you are being prepared for a season of visible favor. The scroll that once held silent records of endurance will soon unfold as testimony. What was once secret will become story, not for your glory, but so that others may learn the language of loyalty. And as you continue walking, I want to speak to your heart about something tender, the power of connection. You see, faithfulness doesn't grow in isolation. It grows in community. Even Jesus walked with disciples. Moses had Aaron. David had Jonathan. The faithful strengthen one another. When one flame flickers, another stands close to share light. That's how endurance multiplies. So, beloved, if these words resonate with your spirit, if you felt seen, understood, or comforted, let this be more than just a moment. Help this light reach further. When you like this message, it's not vanity, it's visibility. It tells the algorithm of this world, faith still matters. When you share it, you become part of the divine echo, heaven's voice multiplied through human hands. And if your heart feels stirred to go deeper, to sow into this flow of words that's been watering your spirit, consider it an act of worship. Some plant with words, others water with prayer, and some sustain the garden through generosity. Your donation is not a transaction, it's a seed in sacred soil. It keeps the message alive, reaching hearts that are hanging by a thread. And yes, subscribe, not as a routine click, but as a covenant connection. Think of it as lighting a candle beside thousands of others who are walking the same narrow road, whispering the same prayer, and carrying the same promise. God, make me faithful to the end. End with, imagine a lantern in the dark, alone. Its light flickers small, but when thousands of lanterns ignite together, the night trembles. That's what happens when you stay connected. You become part of a constellation of faith that pushes back darkness across nations. Heaven marks the faithful, and heaven multiplies the faithful. The more you pour in, the wider this river flows. Let your participation, your kindness, your generosity, and your loyalty become part of the story heaven is telling through this movement. You have been marked, not just to receive, but to radiate. Your faithfulness is contagious. Your endurance inspires others to keep going. And as heaven writes your name in light, remember this: the pen that records your obedience is dipped in grace, and grace never runs dry. The shift in the spiritual atmosphere is real. Chosen one. You felt it this morning, that quiet stirring, the unseen tremor within your spirit. Something moved in the heavens the moment you obeyed. And though the world around you looks the same, the realm above you is not. Obedience always shifts the atmosphere. When you said yes to God again, the balance of power changed. Hell lost ground. The forces that once stalked you with whispers of defeat retreated in silence. Heaven, meanwhile, leaned forward. The winds around your spirit are different now. You might not see it with your eyes, but your soul feels it, that strange peace that follows surrender, that deep knowing that something unseen has aligned. Spiritual shifts are quiet but mighty. They don't come with thunder, they come with confirmation. It's that sudden clarity, that subtle lifting, that moment when the weight that sat on your chest suddenly breaks. That's the evidence of heaven's intervention. And it happened because you obeyed when no one was watching. Obedience is the lever that moves eternity. Every small act of faith tilts the unseen world in your favor. It's like a key that unlocks hidden gates. This morning, when you prayed instead of complaining, when you forgave instead of retaliating, when you chose peace over panic. That was the key turning. And now the gates are open. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 7. The Lord will cause your enemies who rise against you to be defeated before you. They shall come out against you one way and flee before you 7 ways. No. Do you feel that promise unfolding? The same darkness that surrounded you yesterday is now scattering in all directions. Every force that rose against your peace, your mind, your calling, they are being confused, divided, and undone. That's what divine shift looks like. Disorder in hell and order in heaven. You didn't need to raise your voice. Your obedience raised your authority. You didn't need to fight louder. Your stillness became warfare. That's the secret of the chosen. They battle by believing. You've entered a realm where your peace is your weapon and your patience is your power. This is why the last season was so hard. It was resistance before the release. You had to walk through turbulence so you could carry calm. You had to lose control to learn, surrender. Every pressure, every conflict, every sleepless night was heaven's training ground. You were not breaking, you were being built for a higher dimension of faith. And now, heaven has shifted things on your behalf. Doors that refused to open are beginning to unlock. Connections that seemed delayed are aligning. You'll notice people drawn to you, not for your charm, but for your atmosphere. You carry something different. Now, the fragrance of divine presence. But remember, when heaven shifts you, the enemy notices. Expect subtle distraction, strange fatigue, sudden doubts. These are echoes of a losing war. The enemy will try to lure you into old patterns because he knows he can't touch you in the new ones. Guard your peace. Protect your prayer. Keep your worship sharp. You are not who you were yesterday. Your spirit has matured overnight. You are learning to move like heaven moves quietly, purposefully, powerfully. You are walking in a frequency that darkness can't decode. Every word you speak now carries weight. Every prayer you whisper now shifts reality. That's why you must stay alert. Don't return to what you've outgrown. Don't fight battles you've already won. This new atmosphere demands discernment. Move with grace. Speak with wisdom. And listen with a spirit anchored in peace. You are not just surviving anymore, you are governing. Heaven has granted you new territory in the spirit, and you are to walk through it with humility and confidence. Chosen one, if your heart senses this, if you can feel this holy shift resonating within, mark this moment. Declare it in the spirit. Comment 555. Do it as a prophetic act, a number symbolizing transformation and divine change. When you write it, you are saying, God, I recognize the shift. I receive the new atmosphere. You're aligning yourself with what heaven has already begun. And as you do, let peace settle deeper into you. Let fear dissolve. Let striving cease. The shift has already happened. You don't need to force it, just flow with it. The doors opening are not by your strength, but by His word. The winds changing are not coincidence, but covenant. This is your new reality. Battles bending, blessings blooming, favor unfolding. You've stepped into divine momentum. Heaven's rhythm beats in your chest now, and every step forward is an echo of obedience rewarded. The cost of staying chosen is heavy. Chosen one, It's not a crown made of gold, but of pressure forged through silence, rejection, and separation. You've noticed it, haven't you? That the closer you walk with God, the smaller your circle becomes, the higher He takes you, the fewer can breathe your air. That is not punishment, that is preservation. Being chosen is not glamorous, it's sacred loneliness. It's the ache of being misunderstood by those who used to understand you. The sting of walking away from what once comforted you because heaven whispered, "That's not your place anymore." It's carrying a calling that cannot be explained, only lived. The chosen often stand alone not because they are proud, but because they are set apart. There's a solitude that comes with being selected. People won't always understand why you withdraw, why you say no to things that once thrilled you, or why your spirit feels uneasy in rooms that used to feel familiar. They'll call it change, but heaven calls it consecration. You're being redefined. God is pruning your attachments to make room for His presence. And yes, that pruning hurts. It feels like loss, like exile, like isolation. But every empty space God creates around you, He intends to fill with Himself. Every friendship that fades, every opportunity that closes, every familiar comfort that no longer fits, those are signs that you're being drawn into deeper intimacy, into the holy hush where purpose is whispered, not shouted. Chosen one, you are not abandoned, you are being refined. This loneliness isn't proof that you're forgotten, it's proof that you're trusted. Heaven never isolates to punish, it isolates to anoint. There are conversations God can only have with you when the noise fades. There are revelations that only bloom in silence. You have to remember, every mantle carries a weight. To be trusted with heaven's authority means being misunderstood by earth's logic. Not everyone will see what God is doing with you. Some will question your motives. Some will mock your faith. Some will drift away because your light now exposes what they still hide. That's the cost of being a torchbearer. But don't despise the distance. Don't resent the solitude. The wilderness is not your grave, it's your classroom. Every dry place you're walking through is teaching you how to depend on living water. Every closed door is training your spirit to hear God's knock instead of man's approval. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." You see, even isolation has its timing. You're not waiting in vain. Every delay in your story is pregnant with divine purpose. The vision you carry, the dream that still burns, the word that hasn't yet manifested, it's not denied, only developing. The appointed time is closer than you think. And when it comes, you'll understand why the cost was necessary. You'll look back on the solitude and realize it wasn't emptiness, it was formation. God wasn't taking people away from you. He was taking you away from distraction. He was building muscle in your faith, strength in your spirit, and clarity in your discernment. You had to learn how to walk with heaven's rhythm, even when earth's noise mocked you. You had to learn how to hold peace when chaos surrounded you. You had to learn to love when love wasn't returned. That's divine maturity, the kind only learned through the narrow path of being chosen. There's a depth to your soul now that pain created. You don't flinch the way you used to. You don't chase validation like before. You've learned to breathe in storms and still find stillness. That calm you carry is holy. It's the mark of one who has wrestled with God and walked away transformed. So if you find yourself alone again, not lonely, but set apart, don't grieve. Look around that sacred silence and recognize what it really is: the atmosphere of assignment. Heaven isolates only those it intends to elevate. The throne room requires quiet souls. You may not be celebrated by crowds, but you are surrounded by angels. You may not hear applause, but you are hearing the same voice that called prophets, kings, and warriors before you. Be still, I am with you. The cost of staying chosen is steep, but the reward is eternal. You are learning the language of heaven, one that sounds less like noise and more like knowing. You are becoming fluent in obedience, and soon the world will see what heaven already knows: that you were never forsaken, only refined. God trusts you with hidden battles. Chosen one, you've wondered why certain struggles never seem to leave, why your life feels like a series of invisible wars no one else perceives. It's because heaven trusts you with what others could not bear. You are a keeper of secret assignments, one who fights unseen wars so others may rest. There are battles waged in your spirit that the world around you cannot name. You smile, you serve, you give, and yet deep within, waves crash. That pressure isn't random. It's divine delegation. God places weight on those he can trust to carry it without breaking. You've been chosen as a warrior of silence, the kind who doesn't need recognition to keep praying. Many cry for the spotlight, but few can handle the shadows. You, however, have learned to wage war where applause doesn't reach. Your prayers in hidden places have broken chains in distant lives. You've fought for family members who never knew your midnight tears were their covering. You've interceded for friends who mocked your faith but were still protected by it. And though it often feels lonely, heaven records every unseen battle. Angels know your name because of the noise your spirit makes in the unseen, not noise of complaint, but the vibration of warfare. Eich Sheikh. Each whispered, God, help me. Each silent tear, they are swords, unsheathed in the spirit. You think you're enduring. Heaven knows you're defending. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 6, but when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. That's the sacred pattern of your life: unseen obedience, public favor. God has watched you close the door and pray when no one would have blamed you for quitting. You've battled temptation not with loud words, but with steadfast faith. And now, your Father, who saw what no one else did, is preparing your reward in full view. There's a sacred beauty in hidden warfare. It teaches you dependency, sensitivity, and discernment. You've learned how to sense darkness before it arrives, how to disarm conflict with peace, how to stand still when everything screams, run. These are not accidents, they are marks of spiritual maturity. You're not merely surviving your private battles, you're mastering spiritual strategy. God has trained your hands to fight in silence and your heart to remain tender while carrying heavy things. That's divine strength, soft enough to love, strong enough to endure. Sometimes you've asked, why me? Why must I always be the one holding everything together? Why do I feel attacks when others sleep peacefully? The answer is both simple and profound, because you carry authority. The battles reach for you because you have the power to end them. Light attracts warfare because it threatens darkness. Chosen one. Understand this. Hidden battles produce hidden power. Every time you overcome unseen attacks, your anointing deepens. The pressure on your life isn't punishment, it's promotion in disguise. God has placed you in spiritual ranks where silence is strategy and endurance is victory. You may not wear armor that glitters, but your spirit glows. You may not wield a sword you can see, but your words slice through lies. The fire that burns in you doesn't consume, it purifies. That's why people feel peace when you enter a room. They're stepping into the atmosphere of someone who fights for them in prayer. The enemy fears intercessors more than preachers because intercessors carry quiet authority. You've become one of them. Your warfare doesn't require witnesses, it only requires willingness. And you've given God that yes, again and again, even when it cost your comfort. Heaven trusts you because you've proven that power won't corrupt you. You fight without needing credit. You serve without seeking applause. You obey without demanding understanding. That's rare. That's holy. That's why the Father calls you trusted. One day, you'll see what all this cost produced. You'll meet souls who made it through storms because of your silent prayers. You'll learn how many nights you're whispered, God. Cover them, intercepted disaster. You'll realize that your hidden faith shaped destinies. So, the next time you feel weary, remember, you're not just enduring attacks, you're maintaining atmospheres. You are a gatekeeper, a spiritual soldier cloaked in grace. The pressure you feel is the proof of your rank. And when the night grows long and the weight feels unbearable, know this, the same God who assigned the battle will sustain the warrior. You are not alone in your hidden war. You are accompanied by heaven's armies, surrounded by the same angels who once stood in awe of your endurance. You've been trusted with battles because you are trusted with victory. Your pain was prophetic training. Chosen one. Every tear, every betrayal, every sleepless night carried instruction hidden inside it. God has been teaching you through the very things that tried to break you. Pain, in heaven's language, is not punishment, it is preparation. The furnace that burned around you was never meant to destroy you. It was designed to reveal gold. You've walked through seasons that didn't make sense, haven't you? Times when everything you touched seemed to crumble, when your prayers echoed without answer, when silence from heaven felt louder than thunder. But even then, God was working. You weren't being ignored, you were being instructed. Every delay was a lesson. Every loss, a layer of wisdom added to your soul. There's something about pain that textbooks can't teach it. Forges revelation. You now carry understanding that can't be learned through ease. You discern people faster, sense motives clearer, forgive deeper. That's not coincidence, that's curriculum. Heaven was shaping a teacher through every trial. The world saw a storm, heaven saw a classroom. And you, chosen one, were the student who never gave up. You didn't skip class when the lessons hurt. You didn't abandon faith when faith felt foolish. You stayed, and because of that, you graduated from ordinary endurance into divine understanding. You are wiser now, not bitter, softer, not weaker. What once would have broken you now only bends you. That's the sign of transformation, when what once scared you now trains you. You no longer run from pain. You recognize it as the language of destiny. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 119, verse 71. It was good for me to be afflicted so that I might learn your decrees. Even David understood it. Affliction was his tutor, and now you understand it too. The very things you once begged God to remove became the very tools he used to reveal himself to you. Pain opened your ears. Suffering tuned your heart. It made you teachable, compassionate, and bold. You learned to stop asking, "Why me?" and started asking, "What for?" Every heartbreak carved humility into your spirit. Every betrayal forced you to anchor your trust in God, not people. Every loss redirected your loyalty back to heaven. That's prophetic training, not just to speak words of faith, but to live them when nothing looks like the promise. Chosen one. You didn't go through all that for nothing. You're carrying oil now, the kind that only drips from crushed olives. That's why your presence carries weight. When you speak, wisdom follows. When you pray, power stirs. You are not the same person who entered the fire. You are the flame that walked out. And though others may not understand your strength, heaven does. You are a weapon refined in the furnace of affliction. The enemy tried to make you crumble under pressure, but instead, pressure produced anointing. That's why you can now comfort others without judgment, because you've been there. You've walked through what they fear. You've seen darkness and still chosen light. There's nothing wasted in your story. Even the mistakes became mentorship. Even the wounds became windows for grace to shine through. God takes what was meant to destroy and transforms it into direction. That's why you feel purpose stirring again, because your pain is ready to serve its prophecy. And now, I want you to do something simple, but sacred. Comment, "I'm still learning." Write it not as a confession of weakness, but as a declaration of wisdom. Those three words echo humility and growth. When you type them, you're saying, "God, I see what you were doing. I may not understand it all, but I trust your process." It's your way of turning pain into praise, a statement that your trials did not win. They taught, keep that posture of learning. Every season, even the painful ones, carries instruction. The difference now is that you recognize it. You know that not all growth is comfortable, and not all loss is tragic. Sometimes the absence of what you wanted is the presence of what you needed. You have walked through divine education, a curriculum written by tears and graded by endurance. And because you stayed enrolled, heaven now calls you equipped. You are qualified not by certificate, but by scars. You are anointed not by ceremony, but by survival. The next time you feel pain rising again, don't despise it. Look closer. It might be heaven teaching once more. Every ache still has a message. Every struggle still carries revelation. For those who are chosen, even pain prophesies. Heaven is about to publicly honor you. Chosen one, the same eyes that watched you stumble will soon watch you rise. The same mouths that questioned your calling will soon speak your testimony. You've walked through private humiliation, and now you're entering public vindication. The quiet tears that watered your prayers are turning into rivers of visible favor. God does not forget faithfulness. The reward may linger, but it never disappears. When heaven decides it's time, everything changes, not gradually, but suddenly. The same God who trained you in silence is now ready to reveal you in light. What was hidden will soon be highlighted. What was delayed will now be delivered. Vindication is not revenge, it's revelation. It's not about proving others wrong, it's about proving God right. You see, the season of being overlooked was heaven's camouflage. You were being developed where critics couldn't reach you. You were buried, not forgotten, and now, the seed that looked dead is breaking soil. Chosen one. You have endured enough to understand humility. That's why God can now trust you with visibility. You won't worship the platform. You'll use it to point upward. The spotlight that's coming won't blind you because your eyes have been trained by darkness. There will be invitations, opportunities, open doors. But remember, you're not stepping into success. You're stepping into stewardship. The honor that's coming isn't payment, it's purpose. Heaven isn't repaying you for pain, it's repositioning you for impact. As the apostle reminds us in his letter to Peter, 1 Peter, chapter 5, verse 10, and the God of all grace, who called you to eternal glory in Christ, after brief suffering, will restore, strengthen, establish. This is that moment. Beloved, restoration is beginning. Strength is returning. You are walking into the after the chapter that comes once suffering has finished its sacred work. What you lost is not coming back in the same form, but in greater fullness. The people who doubted your promise will stand as witnesses to your fulfillment. Heaven is not random, it is rhythmic. Every season of loss had timing. Every delay was calibration. You were not late, you were aligning. And now, the rhythm has shifted. You're stepping into a symphony of favor composed by divine hands. Think of it like a tree in winter. While everything looked bare, roots were deepening. The world saw lifeless branches, but heaven saw hidden growth. Now, as divine spring arrives, the same branches will bloom so abundantly that even those who mocked the bareness will marvel at the beauty. And when that bloom comes, when the opportunities multiply, when the favor flows, when the platform appears, walk gently. Let gratitude be your fragrance. Let humility be your crown. Remember the soil that shaped you, the tears that watered you, the silence that strengthened you. And if this message stirs something deep within you, if you can feel that this season is shifting in your favor, then pause and act with intention. Let gratitude move you. Like this message, not for algorithmic noise, but as an offering of agreement. It's your way of saying, I see it coming. Share it. Because somewhere, another weary soul is waiting for this same confirmation. Your simple act could be the spark that keeps their faith alive tonight. Subscribe if this space has become a sanctuary for your spirit, not just to stay informed, but to stay connected with others who are also walking this narrow path toward divine purpose. Think of it as joining hands in the dark, a circle of lights moving together toward dawn. And if your heart feels led, if gratitude wells up inside you, consider donating to this mission, not out of pressure, but out of purpose. Every offering becomes a ripple that carries these words further, reaching hearts drowning in silence. Your giving becomes light in another's midnight. You become the bridge between despair and hope. Imagine this like rain returning to the clouds. What you release always returns, multiplied. The same God who sustained you in drought will overflow you in due season. You're not just a listener here, You're part of a movement of endurance, grace, and rebirth. Every small gesture, a like, a share, a prayer, a seed is a piece of that divine symphony playing across the world. And as you do these things, keep your eyes open. You will soon see signs, small confirmations that heaven has turned the page. The rejection was rehearsal. The waiting was weaving. The silence was sowing. And now, the harvest is here. Heaven is about to publicly honor you, not because you demanded it, but because you remained faithful when no one saw. The crown you wear now is invisible, but the world will soon recognize its radiance. Stay humble. Stay grateful. And when the spotlight finds you, let it reflect Him. You walk with divine fire now, chosen one. It is not a flame that burns you, but one that defines you. The storms you survived did more than harden your resolve. They ignited your spirit. There is a holy heat within you now, one that darkness can no longer tolerate. You may not always feel powerful, but the atmosphere around you has changed. You carry fire, the kind that exposes falsehood and awakens sleeping souls. Fire in the spiritual realm is not just light, it's purification. It burns away what cannot stay. That's why the last season felt like loss, because heaven was burning away what diluted your destiny. People, habits, mindsets, even comfort, all placed in the flame so your heart could emerge refined. You are lighter now because the unnecessary has been consumed. You have noticed it already. Certain things that once tempted you no longer appeal. Certain conversations no longer hold your attention. Certain spaces feel too small. That's the sign of a purified spirit. You no longer crave the things that used to control you. Heaven's fire has rearranged your appetite. This fire isn't chaos, it's clarity. It's what makes you see what others miss, hear what others ignore, and feel what others hide. You can sense deception before it speaks. You can feel truth before it manifests. That's divine discernment, a gift born from fire. Chosen one. Understand this. You are not just carrying warmth, you are carrying warfare. Fire doesn't only illuminate, it intimidates. The enemy once approached you casually, but not anymore. You have become too bright to handle, too hot to touch. Demonic opposition doesn't vanish, it withdraws, unable to function in the presence of purified light. As was spoken in the sacred texts of old, Zechariah, chapter 2, verse 5, "And I myself will be a wall of fire around it, declares the Lord, and I will be its glory within." Oh, that verse is your reflection. You are surrounded by a wall of divine flame. God Himself has become your perimeter, a living fortress that guards your peace. Nothing enters your space now unless it's refined enough to walk through fire. That's why certain people can no longer connect with you, not because you've changed too much, but because their motives can't withstand your purity. The fire that surrounds you now does two things. It protects and it purifies. It shields you from external harm and continually shapes you from within. That's why conviction still burns in you when others seem comfortable in compromise. You are not being tormented by guilt. You are being guided by grace. Fire that convicts is fire that preserves. This divine flame also fuels your purpose. You can feel it stirring, that urgency to create, to speak, to act, to build. It's not ambition, it's assignment. Heaven's energy runs through your veins. You no longer need external motivation because your spirit burns with divine momentum. The world may call it passion, but it's more than that. It's destiny combusting. It's heaven's torch being carried in human form. That's why you can't settle anymore. You can't sit in mediocrity or silence when you know there's something holy waiting to be released through you. The fire doesn't let you rest until obedience is complete. You might have noticed how easily people now confide in you, strangers telling you their pain, friends seeking your insight, hearts drawn to your calm. That's what divine fire does. It attracts the broken because it promises warmth, not judgment. You've become a lighthouse, a beacon for those still navigating night seas. But be careful. Beloved, fire is holy and must be guarded. Don't let frustration dim your glow. Don't let weariness make you careless. Fire dies when it's smothered by distraction. Keep your altar alive. Feed it with prayer, with stillness, with truth. Let your heart remain tender, even as your spirit stays fierce. And when trials come again, for they will remember, you are no longer fragile. You are forged. The flames that once threatened to destroy you now recognize you as kin. Fire respects what has survived it. So, walk boldly. Speak with authority. Pray with precision. You are heaven's flame in human form, walking proof that survival births radiance, that pain produces power. Wherever you go, the spiritual temperature rises. That's not pride, that's presence. And as you continue to burn, do not fear running out of fuel. The source of your fire is not self, it is spirit. God Himself sustains the flame. The same breath that lit it will keep it alive. Your only task is to stay surrendered, to keep your heart on the altar and your eyes on the one who kindled you. You are no longer walking through fire, you are the fire. Your obedience activated a prophetic sequence. Chosen one, what you did this morning, that small, quiet, yes, set off a chain reaction in the spiritual realm. You thought it was simple, but heaven saw it as a signal, a divine trigger that unleashed movement on your behalf. Angels responded, timelines shifted, and what was stagnant began to stir. Heaven always responds to obedience. It's not your talent that moves the unseen, it's your surrender. When you align your will with God's, reality bends to accommodate His purpose in you. That's why things around you suddenly feel different. Doors that were sealed are trembling. Connections that went silent are awakening. What seemed delayed is now accelerating. You've stepped into the rhythm of divine cause and effect. Every act of faith sets something in motion. You prayed, and heaven rearranged. You forgave, and chains fell off generations behind you. You trusted, and heaven wrote new blueprints for your future. Nothing you did in obedience was wasted. Every act became a seed of movement. Chosen one, you are living proof that small obedience creates massive shifts. You don't have to roar to change the world. Sometimes a whisper of, yes, Lord, changes eternity. Heaven's mathematics doesn't measure by size, but by surrender. You see, obedience is the key that unlocks divine order. When you move according to His voice, everything around you aligns favor, timing, protection, even correction. It's like a celestial domino effect. One humble act here causes miracles to fall in sequence elsewhere. That's why your obedience carries such weight, because heaven trusts your yes to ripple beyond your sight. As the Spirit spoke through the prophet Samuel, 1 Samuel, chapter 15. Verse 22. To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams. No, that's what this moment means. Your obedience today did more than 1,000 hollow offerings. You didn't just act, you aligned. You didn't just speak, you submitted. That posture carries prophetic power because it mirrors the heart of heaven itself. Something divine began to unfold when you chose surrender. There's movement happening now in places your hands can't reach, in hearts you haven't met, in realms your eyes can't see. Heaven's orchestration has begun, and you are its trigger. This is the power of hidden obedience. What you do in silence becomes thunder in the spirit. The angels move not when you shout, but when you yield. Your yes carries authority because it cost you comfort. That's why the enemy fought so hard to make you delay. He knew your obedience would unlock acceleration. Now watch what unfolds. Conversations will open that you didn't initiate. Doors will swing wide without force. What once resisted you will begin to cooperate. Not because you pushed, but because you aligned. This is divine order, everything responding to the sound of your obedience. And yet, don't think for a moment that your obedience was easy. Heaven knows the cost, the tears, the confusion, the sacrifice of pride, the surrender of timing. It all built the weight behind your yes. God never forgets the faith that obeys through pain. That's why the reward is never small. You've reached a turning point in your story. Obedience is no longer just your discipline, it's your lifestyle. You've moved beyond fear-based compliance into love-based surrender. You trust Him now, not because you understand everything, but because you've seen His hand in everything. So, chosen one, mark this moment. Heaven has already marked it, but you must do the same in the natural. Comment 444. This is not superstition, it's symbolism. The number 444 represents divine order, angelic alignment, heaven's confirmation that structure has shifted in your favor. When you type it, you are declaring, I align with the order of heaven. I agree with what God has begun. It's a prophetic echo of your obedience. Even now, the ripple continues. Your obedience this morning was the spark. Your declaration now is the flame. Together, they form a cycle of movement that heaven will keep expanding. Watch for divine coincidences. They're not coincidences at all, but confirmations that the sequence continues. People around you may sense something different. They'll notice peace where there was confusion, favor where there was delay. That's the signature of obedience in visible change, producing visible fruit. You're walking beneath heaven's synchronized rhythm now. Every step will meet provision prepared before you arrived. Keep saying yes, even when it costs. Keep obeying, even when it's quiet. Every act of obedience triggers another miracle, another opening, another shift. You are no longer waiting for breakthrough, you are the breakthrough. Heaven responds to you because heaven recognizes itself in you. The sequence is in motion, and nothing can stop it now. The mantle of authority rests upon you now. Chosen one. It didn't arrive with a trumpet or a title, but quietly like morning light creeping through curtains. You may not even have noticed it at first, but something about you has changed. The way you speak, the way you move, the way you pray, all of it carries new weight. Heaven has placed something sacred upon your shoulders, and it fits you perfectly because it was tailored through your trials. A mantle is never earned by ambition. It's bestowed through endurance. Every season of testing, every stretch of faith, every night you thought you wouldn't make it, they were all measurements for this mantle. Heaven was shaping you, not for status, but for service. You were being built not to impress, but to impact. And now that process is complete. You are walking in divine authority. Authority in the kingdom doesn't look like domination. It looks like peace that silences chaos. Words that heal instead of harm. Love that convicts instead of condemns. You carry that now. When you speak, your voice carries echoes of heaven's confidence. When you pray, the atmosphere bends in recognition. The spiritual realm knows who you are. Even if the world doesn't, the mantle is both clothing and commission. It covers you, and it calls you. You've been covered by God's mercy for years, even when you stumbled. He shielded you. Now, that same mercy has transformed into mission. You are being sent not as a spectator, but as an instrument. The days of questioning whether you're ready are over. Heaven would not have crowned you if you were unprepared. The prophet Elijah once cast his mantle on Elisha, symbolizing transfer of power and purpose. The same spiritual principle has happened with you. The fire you survived became the fabric of your mantle. Each fiber is woven with endurance, humility, and revelation. When you move forward now, you do so not as one still being tested, but as one trusted, as the Apostle Paul wrote in his letter to the Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 10. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. This isn't just encouragement, it's instruction. Authority in the kingdom doesn't depend on human strength. It depends on your connection to divine power. You are not strong because you are stubborn. You are strong because you are surrendered. Your might flows from your intimacy with God. Chosen one. You've been given this mantle for impact. Every sphere you step into, work, family, ministry, even casual interactions, becomes a place of divine influence. People will sense peace without knowing why. They'll feel conviction without hearing a sermon. That's the invisible authority you now carry. You don't have to announce it, you just have to live it. The weight of the mantle is real. You'll feel it in moments of responsibility. When God nudges you to speak, when silence feels safer, to forgive when anger feels justified, to stand when surrender feels easier. That's the cost of authority. Obedience when comfort calls. But don't fear the weight. You've already proven your endurance. The same grace that prepared you will sustain you. And with authority comes discernment. You'll begin to recognize spiritual patterns faster, where confusion hides, where deception lingers. You'll know when to speak and when to stay silent. That's not paranoia, it's prophetic awareness. Heaven is tuning your senses to the rhythm of truth. Your mantle is not ornamental, it's operational. It's meant to function, not just shine. It will draw people who need guidance, healing, clarity. But remember, you're not their savior, you're their signpost. Point them to the one who clothed you. Let your confidence remain anchored in humility. The greatest authority always bows lowest before God. At times, you may feel the mantle grow heavy. That's not a sign to quit. It's a signal to return to the source. Every leader must learn to rest under the same hands that once anointed them. Even Jesus withdrew to the mountains to pray, not because he lacked power, but because he valued presence. And you, too, must keep your fire fueled by intimacy. Authority, disconnected from intimacy, becomes arrogance. But authority rooted in surrender becomes revival. You are not called to rule over. You are called to serve under the flow of heaven's power. So carry it well. Chosen one. Let the mantle remind you of where you've been and who you belong to. Let it draw you closer to the heart of the Father, not further into performance. Wear it with reverence, not pride. Speak with wisdom, not noise. Walk with confidence, not arrogance. Because when you wear heaven's mantle, you represent heaven's King. And that's the highest honor any soul can carry. You are heaven's weapon on earth. Chosen one. That may sound poetic, but it is truth written in light. You were not merely created to survive darkness, you were designed to confront it. Every trial you've faced, every lesson you've learned, every scar you've carried has shaped you into a weapon refined for divine use. You are not fragile, you are forged. Not accidental, intentional. Heaven does not send weapons without precision. You were fashioned in the fires of adversity, hammered in moments of silence, and sharpened through seasons of pain. Every edge you carry was carved by experience. Mercy honed your compassion, loss sharpened your discernment, and grace balanced your strength. You are now both gentle and fierce, capable of restoring peace and dismantling chaos in equal measure. Weapons of heaven are not made of steel, they are made of surrender. You are one such creation, a living instrument through which the will of God flows. That's why your words carry impact, why your prayers disrupt atmospheres, and why your presence alone unsettles darkness. You are not powerful because you are loud. You are powerful because you are aligned. When you walk into a room, spiritual climates shift. It's not visible, but it's real. The weary feel calm without knowing why. The angry soften. The hopeless find strength again. That's heaven's weaponry at work. You've become a carrier of divine voltage, invisible but undeniable. Weapons in the kingdom don't fight like the world does. They conquer through compassion, dismantle through truth, and protect through prayer. That's your mission now, to carry love as a sword and wisdom as a shield. You will cut through lies not by arguing, but by existing in authenticity. You will disarm evil not through fury, but through forgiveness. You will win not by force, but by faith. The Apostle reminds us in his second letter to the Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 4. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. That verse is more than theology, it's biography. You are living proof of it. What once tried to bind you, you now have power to break in others. The addictions you conquered, the fears you outlasted, the shame you silenced, they've all become your arsenal. God recycles your battles into ammunition. Nothing you endured was wasted. Everything was reforged into strength. Chosen one. You are heaven's subtle revolution, not one of noise, but of transformation. Your warfare doesn't always look like battle cries. Sometimes it looks like patience in adversity, gentleness in anger, and grace in chaos. The enemy doesn't know what to do with a soul that refuses to hate. That's your secret weapon, unshakable love. Understand this. The weapon that you are doesn't operate apart from God's hand. A sword separated from its wielder is useless. The moment you try to fight by your own strength, the edge dulls. Stay yielded. Let the Spirit direct your movements. The same hand that forged you still guides you. You were never meant to swing wildly, but to strike with divine accuracy. There will be moments when you feel weary from carrying this responsibility. When that happens, remember, even weapons need rest. Rest doesn't mean retreat, it means recalibration. Lay yourself again before the Maker, and He will sharpen what life has dulled. You are not failing when you pause. You are being prepared for the next strike. And do not be surprised if isolation returns at times. A weapon, when not in use, remains in its sheath, not because it's forgotten, but because it's being protected. You are hidden, not from purpose, but for purpose. Heaven will draw you out when the timing is perfect. Until then, stay sharp in silence. Your life now carries ripple effects. Every decision, every prayer, every step is part of a strategy far beyond your comprehension. You are a divine instrument placed in a precise position. Where you stand, darkness cannot claim ground. Where you speak, confusion must scatter. You are both defender and deliverer in the hands of God. Let that awareness keep you humble. Weapons don't choose their battles. They trust the hand that wields them. You may not always understand where God sends you or why, but every placement carries purpose. Sometimes He will use you in visible ways, leading, healing, creating. Other times, He will position you quietly, influencing without being noticed. Both are holy. So, carry yourself with stillness and strength. You don't have to announce who you are. The spirit world already knows. You were not made to prove your power. You were made to express His. You are not an instrument of destruction, but of divine disruption. Wherever you go, darkness loses footing, truth takes root, and heaven gains territory. You are not just part of God's plan, you are one of His strategies. You are a blade of light in a world addicted to shadows. Move carefully, speak wisely, and live faithfully. The war is not over, but victory walks beside you. Guard what God gave you. Chosen one, every treasure heaven places in human hands must be protected. You've carried grace, revelation, and spiritual authority through fire, and now that you hold it, the enemy would love nothing more than to distract you into carelessness. The greatest danger after victory is vulnerability. The crown glows brightest when guarded well. You've walked too far and paid too much to let your peace be stolen by noise. Guard it. Guard your prayer life like a well in the desert. Draw from it daily. Cover it at night. Guard your joy like a flame in the wind. Nurture it. Shield it. Feed it with gratitude. And guard your focus. For distraction is the enemy's oldest tactic. The same God who trusted you with fire will trust you with silence again. There will be seasons when heaven speaks less, not because you're off course, but because God trusts you to walk by memory, by the light already placed inside you. Protect that light. Protect the inner stillness that took years to build. No warrior leaves his sword unattended, and no chosen one abandons the altar that shaped them. Keep your habits holy. Guard your boundaries fiercely. You don't need to explain your peace to people who thrive in chaos. Silence is your armor now. Scripture says in the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 10, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life, and have it to the full. The thief still tries, but now you know his methods. He no longer attacks with obvious evil. He uses busyness, comparison, exhaustion. He'll try to drain your spirit slowly, until your light dims not from sin, but from distraction. Guard your attention. Chosen one. In this age of endless noise, focus itself is worship. You are the keeper of sacred things. Your peace is a sanctuary. Your time, a temple. Your purpose, a garden. The weeds will always try to return, but you are wiser now. Pull them out early. Don't let bitterness take root. Don't let fear bloom. You've learned the rhythm of pruning. Let it continue. Think of your spirit like a garden after a storm. Branches may have broken. Soil may have shifted, but the roots still hold. God has replanted you deeper this time. And where roots go deeper, fruit grows sweeter. That's why you must guard the ground of your heart. Every thought you entertain is a seed. Every word you speak waters something. Choose carefully what you cultivate. Now, let's pause together. If these words have met you in that quiet space of understanding, if you can feel that tug within your chest, that whisper saying, "This is for me," I want to invite you to act gently but intentionally. Like this message, if your heart feels aligned with its truth, not out of routine, but as a small act of recognition, like lighting a candle in agreement, share it so that another weary guardian might be reminded of their worth. You never know whose spirit is flickering in darkness tonight, waiting for the light of these words to reach them. Subscribe, not to chase updates, but to stay connected, a community of flames learning to burn brighter together. Every message becomes another spark in the constellation of chosen souls, refusing to go dim. And if this river of words has watered your faith, consider helping it flow further. Your donation doesn't buy blessings, it builds bridges. It keeps this sanctuary alive, allowing the message to travel beyond borders and languages. Every offering, no matter the size, becomes a seed of continuity so that someone else, someday, can drink from the same well that refreshed you. Think of it like tending a vineyard. Every vine you water grows fruit, not only for you, but for generations after. What you sow here multiplies quietly, producing comfort where despair once lived. Finally, leave your voice in this space. Comment something honest, a word, a phrase, a prayer, maybe just "still guarding" or "I understand." Let it be your mark of participation, proof that you were here, alive in this exact moment, choosing to protect what's sacred, because this guarding of the heart, this stewardship of peace is not a one-time act. It's a lifelong devotion. The treasures heaven gives must be tended daily. You have become the gardener of divine gifts, the keeper of spiritual flame. And as you guard what God gave you, heaven guards you in return. The same fire that refines also protects. You are surrounded, shielded, and seen. The thief may circle, but he cannot cross the fence built by faith. You are safe in the sacred, crowned in the midst of battle. That's your story. Chosen one, not crowned after victory, not celebrated in comfort, but honored right in the middle of the chaos. Heaven's coronations never wait for calm skies. The crown is not placed when you've escaped the storm, it's placed while the wind still howls. You were anointed not at the end of the fight, but during it. You felt that contradiction, haven't you? The mixture of exhaustion and elevation, the confusion of feeling both broken and blessed at once. It's strange to be chosen in the middle of conflict, to carry favor while still wiping away tears. But that's how God works. The crown isn't a reward for perfection, it's a seal for perseverance. The moment you chose to keep believing while bleeding, heaven placed something invisible on your head. Not everyone could see it, but the spiritual realm did. Angels recognized the gleam. The darkness sensed the authority. The crown wasn't metal, it was light. It represents every yes you gave in suffering, every step you took in faith when fear screamed louder. Being crowned in battle means learning to breathe amid fire. It means walking forward when your legs shake, praying when words fail, worshipping when nothing makes sense. It's faith at its purest, stripped of reward, motivated only by love. That's the moment heaven crowns you, because the King crowns only those who look like him. And what does he look like? A warrior wearing peace as armor, a shepherd carrying scars as proof of compassion, a king who bleeds for his kingdom. When you endure with grace, you mirror that image. You become a living reflection of divine royalty in human form. We are reminded through the writings of James, chapter 1, verse 12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, having stood the test, will receive the crown of life the Lord has promised to those who love him. That's the crown you now wear, the crown of life. Not luxury, the crown of endurance. Not ego. It shines in unseen realms, radiating with the glow of one who refused to give up. The world crowns achievement, heaven crowns endurance. Chosen one. This is what separates you from those who merely endure storms. You've learned to worship in them. You've discovered that the battlefield is sacred ground because God meets you there. Every time you lift your eyes in chaos and whisper, "Still, I trust you," the heavens pause to listen. That whisper becomes incense that ascends straight to the throne. The crown you wear is invisible to most, yet undeniable in effect. It's why people look at you and see calm where they expect collapse. It's why doors open without explanation. It's why, even when you feel unqualified, heaven insists you are ready. You've proven your heart in warfare, and yes, the battle is not over. The crown doesn't end the conflict, it transforms your posture within it. You no longer fight for victory, you fight from victory. You no longer strive for approval, you move from assurance. The authority resting on you gives confidence that every battle from this point forward is a setup for testimony, not tragedy. Still, the crown is weighty. Sometimes it feels like responsibility pressing down on your mind and shoulders. There will be days when it feels more like burden than blessing. But remember, even gold is heavy. Glory has gravity. And God trusts you with that weight because he knows your spirit is strong enough to carry it. Your crown will draw both admiration and resistance. Some will celebrate the peace you've found, others will misunderstand it. Some will sense your authority and honor it, others will feel threatened and turn away. Let them. Royalty doesn't chase recognition. The crown remains, even when the crowd changes. The important thing now is to keep walking as the crowned one you are. Don't stoop to old battles that no longer match your rank. Don't waste words explaining what heaven already confirmed. Let your actions speak patience, kindness, wisdom, grace. Every time you choose love instead of retaliation, the jewels in your crown shine brighter. The battlefield will not always roar around you. One day, the noise will fade, and you'll realize the crown was preparing you for peace. You'll step out of the smoke and see that everything you endured was leading to this calm authority, quiet victory, unshakable trust. For now, hold your head high, not in arrogance, but in awareness. The crown sits upon your scars, proof that you are both warrior and heir. You have been crowned in the midst of battle, not after surviving the fire, but because you became the flame. The reward of the faithful chosen one is not always gold or comfort. It is peace that cannot be stolen, purpose that cannot be shaken, and presence that never leaves. You stand now at the edge of a long season, not defeated, but transformed. You've been through the valley, climbed the mountain, and walked through the fire. Yet here you are, steady, radiant, still chosen. The world will never fully understand what it costs to walk with God like this. To wake each day, not driven by ambition, but by assignment. To carry invisible burdens while maintaining visible calm. To love deeply while being misunderstood. To keep believing when every logical voice tells you not to. That is the quiet heroism of the faithful, and heaven honors it far more than the applause of men ever could. You have walked through so many transitions that your spirit has learned the art of trust. The unknown no longer terrifies you. It feels like familiar territory now because you've seen what happens when you surrender control. You've seen God's pattern. The loss becomes lesson. The waiting becomes wisdom. The silence becomes sanctuary. What once frightened you now forms you. There is a stillness inside you that wasn't there before. Once you chased answers, now you carry peace. Once you begged for signs, now you simply listen. Once you tried to prove your worth, now you rest in it. The transformation wasn't loud, but it was real and it was permanent. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 10, "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." That's the essence of your reward. The kingdom of heaven isn't a distant realm waiting after death. It's the authority, love, and light that you now carry within you. You live as one who has touched heaven and returned with its fragrance. That's why people notice peace around you, even when you say nothing. You are walking evidence that the divine lives among the ordinary. Every hardship you endured was a chisel, carving eternity into your soul. Every unanswered prayer taught you reverence. Every delay refined your trust. You are not the same person who began this journey. You've become something more enduring, more eternal. The faith you carry now could move mountains, not because it's loud, but because it's pure. Look at your life, not with regret, but with revelation. Every path you thought was wasted became a thread in the pattern. Every heartbreak became an open door to deeper compassion. Every night of confusion led to dawn's quiet understanding. That's how heaven weaves destiny through contradictions that only make sense in hindsight. You've learned that the true reward of faithfulness is not what you receive, but who you become. You are now the kind of soul that light cannot leave, that fear cannot control, that time cannot erase. Your presence itself brings balance. You have become the message you once sought to hear. Heaven's applause doesn't sound like thunder, it sounds like peace. That's what surrounds you now. A quiet acknowledgement from the divine that you have done well. You obeyed when it cost comfort. You trusted when it cost clarity. You stayed when leaving would have been easier. And for that, heaven whispers the words every faithful one longs to hear. Well done. That, not well done because you were flawless, but because you were faithful, not because you were strong, but because you refused to stop leaning on grace. The Father doesn't crown perfection, He crowns persistence. So rest, chosen one, not in laziness, but in fulfillment. The work isn't over, but the proving season is. You've passed through fire, and now you shine. You've been refined into one heaven can trust with greater assignments, deeper love, higher purpose. Your reward is not somewhere ahead of you, it's already here, living inside your calm, your wisdom, your strength. You carry eternity now, not as a promise, but as a presence. And as you step forward from this moment, know this: you are not moving into uncertainty, you are moving into inheritance. The same God who carried you through the wilderness will now guide you into rest. You are the living proof of His faithfulness, the story He tells to angels when He wants to show what love can do. You are, and will forever be, His faithful chosen one. Chosen one. You've reached the end of this journey, but not the end of your becoming. Every word you've absorbed, every image that stirred your heart, was heaven's whisper, reminding you who you are: steady, sacred, unstoppable. You've walked through the 17 gates of revelation and arrived clothed in peace, marked with purpose, crowned with light. Now, carry this presence into your world. Let these truths ripple through your conversations, your prayers, your quiet moments. You never know whose night might brighten because you chose to shine. If this message has found you in a holy moment of recognition, let your response be an act of gratitude. Like this message, not as habit, but as worship. Share it, because someone you love may still be standing in the valley you've already crossed. Your share might be the rope that pulls them upward. Leave your voice here. Comment something honest, a phrase that captures what you feel. Now, maybe still chosen. Maybe I receive this. Maybe just thank you. Lord, let heaven see your agreement in writing. And if this space has become a source of peace and strength, subscribe not to follow noise, but to stay within the rhythm of revelation. Together, we keep this fire alive. You have walked faithfully. You are not at the end, you are at the threshold of your next divine chapter.